Coast to Coast Combat Hour. Ed Carbajal and Matthew Hawkins here for you one last time in this fucking year, 2021. We're gonna take a quick look back at some of the things that stood out to us throughout the year. No guest this week, but we've got well, I fucked up in my notes, but we're gonna look at some fights we want to see, fighters to watch, and some champions we'd like to see in the coming year. Before we move forward, just remember that this podcast, as all the other podcasts, are brought to you by AllAccessMMA.com. Make sure you check out AllAccessMMA.com for your mixed martial arts news and stuff like that. Matt, what? Merry post Christmas, my man.
Merry post Christmas. Yeah, weird Christmas for me. Unfortunately, my grandmother passed away, so I dedicate this show to her, and
yeah,
everything else she's done for me. There's nothing I could dedicate that'd be worth everything she's did. But she lived a great life, and everybody in the family loved her, and she'll be greatly missed. But moving on from that, because that's why we're here. We're here to talk the world of fights. No Bellator, no UFC, which kind of sucks. It was always kind of nice having that end of the year.
There's always something to watch,
UFC
though.
No.
You know what I mean? Like I hate it when folks keep complaining that there's no UFC. You and I both know. I mean, follow Grubaka Hitman on Twitter if you want to know what's up around in the fight sphere in the universe of combat sports. He posts a schedule for everything, and I mean, there's the Fury Pro Grappling tomorrow night, which I think I'm doing some stuff for MyMMAnews.com. And then obviously, in Japan.
Ryzen 33 is tomorrow night.
It wouldn't be the planet Earth if there wasn't some Japanese MMA.
No. I'm heading out of town tomorrow for a little bit, and I think I'm going to work my way into figuring out how to watch that tomorrow night. So it'd be hard not to keep the tradition alive. And even though it's been a down year for a little bit of Japanese MMA with
I should have worn my Pride t-shirt for this, but it's also I'm in New Jersey, so I can't wear a t-shirt right
now. No, I cranked my heat a little too high here, so I had to pull the hoodie off because chilly for a white boy from Southern California right now out here. So there's obviously stuff going on, but the end of the year UFC card used to always be fun to watch, and that. But everything's changed with that. So,
but let me ask you before we move on to our things we want to see, fighters to watch, fights to watch, and all that. Like, if you're looking back, I mean, especially you had an opportunity to actually go to some things this year. Looking back at the year, I mean, I think we both said that the first UFC in Jacksonville, was a card that kind of stands out as far as major cards. I want to say. You were also at when AJ McKee won the title, right?
That's right. Yeah, I did the AJ McKee one. I was at Moreno and Figueiredo. Yeah, man, I had a along with a couple BKFC events. I had a successful year going to fights, at least for the first half of the year. But I don't know. What are you asking me? Any highlights?
Well,
that really stood out?
like people are talking about cards of the year, fights of the year, and I feel like I mean, the UFC's return to the Garden is always kind of up there, but I'm trying to think if there's like really cards that stood out. In my opinion, those two, which I think weren't they both the same number? No, Bellator 260. And I got to look at it.
I have the poster right here. So, although it doesn't say on the Bellator poster. Oh yeah, 263 was Bellator, and then.
Weren't they both like 263 or something like that?
I think UFC Jacksonville, I think, was 61, and then I think 63 was in Arizona, if I remember right. And then we got to 66 eventually with or 67 was 68. I'm sorry, was New York card. I mean, the Jacksonville one stands out being there, being the first one back with a live crowd. The gruesomeness of MMA, it had a little bit of everything. It was a super violent card.
Yeah.
I could do without the Weidman leg snap, but I understand that also is something that kind of makes the event stand out. Is gruesome as that might be. But the more I think about it and look at that Usman Masvidal knockout, it's like, I mean, that was highlight reel for the century.
So for me, if I have to pick like cards overall, I mean, I know somebody will drop something in the comments or say something on, watching this later. But those two cards for me are probably like the two standout cards overall. As far as overall cards, I'm sure you can make arguments for other ones, but so it's UFC 261 and Bellator 260.
The Bellator 263 card was okay, but it meant a lot. It had a lot of meaning. It had some good fights, but it wasn't
your neck of the woods, and
and it wasn't. But it wasn't the violence. I don't think there was a single knockout really on knockout on the card, because the last fight really ended in a submission, even despite it basically being a TKO. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, that the moments that like would flash through my mind, obviously, is being in Arizona with a major Mexican Hispanic crowd, and seeing Moreno win the title. That was cool. That was cool to be a part of, because I didn't expect it to. I didn't expect him to finish Figueiredo. I don't know if a lot of people did. I think I don't recall exactly what the chatter was all around that fight, but I don't think anybody really thought Moreno would finish him. And maybe Diaz fighting in person. I know it was Leon Edwards. That was the same card, but just for the kind of the atmosphere of a crowd that is really behind a fighter. Usually it's kind of 50-50, or maybe 60-40 on how the crowd is. But when you got a Diaz fighting, it's basically like 90-10. So it's like the whole arena. It's kind of almost like backing a local fighter, that everybody knows, and I feel like that's kind of like what it's like watching him. Kind of feel that way with Uriah Faber too, especially earlier in his UFC days. Maybe it's just being a Californian, and those two guys just happen to be Californians, but that's kind of what it felt like. But those are the things that stand out. Being able to go to, to a couple BKFC events, see some family around the country, and sit ringside for chaos is really the only way I can explain it. Made for a lot of memories, but and then getting a chance to talk to Chris Lytle and Sean Wheelock and stuff over the year with BKFC kind of added to that. But yeah, I would say the highlights for me were UFC Jacksonville card in general, the Usman KO, and then Moreno winning the title.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big one too. So it was definitely, I mean, if UFC obviously had a good year, but I just feel like there was it's nice to look outside of just their window when you're looking at the bigger window of combat sports overall. So I'm trying to think. I mean, outside of the freak show boxing that's been going on, I don't know. I'm hoping in 2022 maybe we get back to a little bit more normal fighting.
Petrosian got knocked out brutally in kickboxing in one. That was unexpected.
That's right. Yeah, and
that was shocking.
Rico Verhoeven's glory fight against the last minute matchup, because he was supposed to fight Overeem, and then he forgot. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he almost beat him. In the last Glory event, the one that I can't remember the guy's name for me. But
was it Sadiq?
Is that, I gotta look up
Jamal Sadiq? I'm not real.
That sounds like that sounds right.
I think so. Right, big, huge dude, like 6'7".
Yeah. He was the last. It was supposed to be Overeem, and then it wound up being him. And I think in the first round, I mean, he damn near almost finished Rico Verhoeven. So it was definitely an interesting year in combat sports. I mean, and
then, like you said, you want to go by the YouTube stuff, but really, there was times where that was the stuff a lot of people were talking about. We had Triller. We had some weird stuff with Triller, aside from all the Jake Paul fights. We saw Evander Holyfield in a embarrassment get into the ring.
Yeah. Hey, that made it into.
We saw Anderson Silva knocked out Tito Ortiz.
Yeah,
like
that event made it into. If you haven't watched it on Netflix, the Death to 2021, that actually made it into their wrap up of the year, because Donald Trump was doing the alternate commentary on that one.
Right, I forgot
about that. So if you haven't watched, if you have a Netflix account, Death of 2021, when it's always for guys like us, when we see something from our little world make it into the general demographic of Netflix folks, I just found that to be unique. Oddly enough, it was for Trump reasons, but still, I mean, it's a good and bad press, I guess, for combat sports.
Yeah, but so those are kind of the things that stood out and just when you think about it, a lot happened. We think like I don't know. I still kind of have that lag, even though I mentioned all that stuff I was able to go to and see it. I still feel like it just wasn't normal. I still feel like like there's like a haze of stuff still. Like even when thinking about it, like was it this year? Was it last year? Like I still am kind of I'm still kind of in that mentality. Like I don't.
The fog of the world we've been living in is definitely still there. I, for one, am tired of covering events through Zoom and Zoom press conferences and waiting my turn and all that stuff. That, thankfully, it's an option for folks that want to, like, in the media that like to cover the events and stay safe and do all that stuff. But I think in 2022, I'm gonna definitely get the hell out of New Jersey for some fights, man, or just in general, because it's time, man. I mean, it's definitely been way too long. And I just hope, I don't know. I hope, I know, like, when they asked Dana White at the last press conference, his plans for the year as far as UFC events. I mean, he seemed fine just sticking with Apex, Texas, Florida, Abu Dhabi.
The only thing that brings me hope is the rumored card in Columbus, Ohio. I think it's March 19th.
Yeah.
So, and it's supposed to be a fight night. So when I saw that, I kind of lit up a little bit. Like, okay, maybe. We don't. Even if like the UFC was doing like 4 events a week or 4 events a month. If one's a pay-per-view, big pay-per-view, and one's a fight night on the road somewhere, and 2 of them are at the Apex, so be it. If they want to use the Apex to have fights, I would love to see the Apex used as like more of the challenger, like what we got with Dana White's thing, but like a Wednesday night fight. Give me like a 4-fight card on a Wednesday night that are a UFC fight, not a challenger series or contender series or whatever series. Like, don't give me anything with a fake name. Give me. You can make up a new name for it. I don't care what you want to call it, but give me a UFC card with, UFC branding on a Wednesday night from the Apex, something like that. Sunday night, like it. We've talked about this, but that's not really. We're not here to go with that one, but we did talk.
The thing about the Apex is I remember when Dana White first announced it, and I think I talked about this on the podcast earlier in the year too when they were doing their Apex thing. I mean, he seemed so excited about having this home base of operations, so not just have fighters train and stuff like that, but to have and contender series and stuff like. But he even said that could technically be if the UFC had a channel where they were broadcasting live stuff from, that's where they would do it from. And I remember media not being very excited as Dana White was about it. And now here we are in a situation where, maybe it was earlier than he planned, but it's working out for them. And he's been pretty public about, I dropped my pen. Sorry. He's been pretty public about, that being one of their best ways. I mean, they've had great success financially because they're saving a lot of money by doing stuff there. So,
I get it from their perspective because the gate is really probably the pennies, that they're making, financially. But I guess what bothers me the most is just from a fan's perspective, and maybe it shouldn't bother me because I'm not the fighter, but I just hate seeing guys like Wonder Boy possibly have, what could potentially be their last fight in a small little place like that. I hate seeing these title fights, that have some meaning in a place like that. I hate seeing, to me, Brandon Royval was somebody we talked about. Like, he could get, I think he might have fought on one of the Texas cards. So he finally got in front of a crowd, but you get to a point where you have 2 or 3 fights where you basically don't have a crowd. I know they have a small one there, but I just feel like if guys reach the UFC, they deserve to have that opportunity. Now, there's nothing all that glorious about fighting in the first couple of fights of a prelim, but at least you're in Vegas, you're in a big arena. You've got it just, I don't know, maybe I'd have to talk to a fighter more about it. I know Royval and stuff talked about wanting to. I think maybe even Natan Levy might have even mentioned wanting to get a chance to fight with the mega crowd and stuff like that.
But, well, that's the thing too. I mean, even when Dana White was pressed about it, I mean, he said he was fine, but every time they do something with fans, he's even said gets filled, lump in his throat, emotion when you hear the roar of the crowd and stuff like that. And I think that's just part of our DNA, human nature. Like, I mean, go back to the fucking Coliseum and all that shit. Arenas and fights have always been like something that'll get us, emotionally involved and
blood pumping a little
bit.
bit.
Yeah. I mean,
so that's why we're there. It's the same thing if you're a big football fan or an NBA fan. When they announce when you're a Laker fan and they announce LeBron James or whatever. If you're a big Laker fan, you get excited when they announce Kobe. You got pumped up. But for a fight fan, it's one-on-one competition. Ideally, you're able to get a good perspective, especially if you're media and you get close to it, you get to, you get a real feel for it. And that's what,
man.
That's what I missed. And I'm sure that's what, like I said, I'm spoiled, but, I look forward to you getting out there. If anybody in the UFC is listening, give this goddamn man a credential. Let him go cover a UFC event. The man's put in the work to do it.
Yeah. And not just when you're trying to get, legal shit done in New York either, but
because
that was around that time.
Ed Carvajal a UFC credential. It's about damn time.
But it's just for me personally too, like having I think I've talked to you about this privately, but like I get those moments like when I talked to Fedor when he fought here in New York, like it didn't hit me until I was riding the train back to Jersey that I was like, holy shit. I watched this guy's whole career on Pride and stuff like that, and I just had a conversation with him, and because when I get in work mode, I'm always present. I guess it comes from training or whatever, but I keep my mind present to what I need to get done, and then usually after the fact is when it hits me, and I'll never forget that day when I was riding home. It hit me that I was like, holy shit! I just talked to one of the guys that like I had T-shirts and shit from before I even thought about covering the sport. So it'll be fun to get back to that. But enough of that, man. I mean, we got a brand new year to look forward to, and I know there's stuff that we want to see, and my bad for misreading my notes, but so we'll look at
So anybody that's listening, we were going to do 3 fights that we're looking forward to possibly happening in 2022. Ed's going to end up doing 3 fighters to look forward to, and I will do 3 fights. Why don't we rotate? Why don't you go ahead with your first fighter, and then I'll follow you with my first fight.
All right. As far as fighters to watch, who do I want to do first? Actually, I'll do. I might as well do it first because of where he fights. Over at One Championships, Reinier de Ridder. He's the middleweight and light heavyweight champ there. He last fought when the promotion did stuff on TNT. I know he has goals of being a 3-division champ over there, but I was really impressed with his performance, the way he handles a mic when he post-fight interview. And I feel like that's a guy that not enough people, especially, the way the fans are now, if One Championship is definitely going to be making a move, I think, or I hope, or at least I know they want to, because they've been trying for the last 2 years to make their move over here to the stateside, but, the United States. But if they do get to put on an event in Colorado, like we keep, speculating and hearing rumors about, I hope they bring Reinier de Ridder with them on that card, potential card that they put on, because that's definitely somebody you want to keep an eye on. The guy is undefeated, 14-0, and he holds 2 titles in the promotion right now.
Yeah, no, it's a great pick. I kind of forgot about him.
I know that's why I was like, I need to get talked up.
En Lasang,
twice.
Twice took both of his belts, and that guy was actually, gosh, what was it? I guess maybe 2019 now. When I was at when I was at one of the Fighter MMA Awards in Vegas, he won Fighter of the Year. So even as a one fighter, so the fact that he was defeated twice, you definitely that's a you're making this tough now. I'm glad I'm glad I went to work on a couple things. So I'm gonna get one out of the way first. That's been talked about by the fighters a bit on social media. Not super creative, but a fight that I'd like to see, and maybe odd because I generally am not a huge someone who I don't yearn for Conor McGregor fights. But I would like to see Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. in the UFC.
Oh, that's a good one.
I think it's a good time for that fight. They're both a bit lower in the rankings now, and both still in the top 10.
Both took L's, yeah.
Both coming off 2 L's in a row. Both basically need to be hungry if they want to continue to tread water in the lightweight division in the UFC. It's a fight that it's two former champions, a former Bellator champ versus former UFC champ. And I'd have to double check the timing, but I think they were probably, I don't know if they were, it was real close whether they were champ at the same time. I know Chandler and Khabib overrode a little bit. But I just think it has fireworks written all over it. I don't think Chandler would be afraid to engage. I don't think he would go into the fight already beaten mentally, like I think some of the other fighters are. I think short of Justin Gaethje, who deserves the title shot and will be a robbery if he doesn't get it, I don't think there's anybody that could really bring the fight to McGregor that he hasn't already fought, like Michael Chandler. So, I'm a big Michael Chandler fan. The idea of him getting in there and boxing up with McGregor just excites me, and it would be something. It'd be a McGregor fight that I would look forward to paying for to go or pay-per-view if need be. So that will be my first fight. Like I said, talked about, so not a crazy, thrown together fight, but I think that has fight of the year potential written all over it.
Yeah, no, I mean that's definitely something that'll bring in a lot of money too. And who doesn't want to? I mean, I know Oliveira was trying to call out McGregor just because of the potential payday, which, I mean, we're gonna get into that late in a little bit, but you know what I mean? Like it's definitely something that I wouldn't mind seeing for Chandler. And honestly, I mean, that's not a bad matchup style wise.
Not at all. I mean, Chandler might wrestle, but probably not. Probably not. There's probably someone's probably getting put out cold in that fight, or you end up with just a 3-round. And I don't need to see 5 rounds. If they can't get the job done in 3 rounds, I'm okay with calling it at that. Like, I didn't need another 2 rounds of Gaethje. Chandler obviously would have watched it, but not necessary to tell the story. If the story's not written in 3 rounds between, really, if it's not written in 3 rounds in any Michael Chandler fight, then the last 2 rounds aren't all that necessary. So, and I think he's good at writing 3-round stories. So, I think it would be an awesome fight.
Yeah, for sure. Excuse me. Well, again, since I didn't match make, I just picked 3 fighters to keep an eye on. So I'll go on to mine, because the 2 fighters that I'm going to mention, the next one, it's Rafion Stotts in the bantamweight division. I know he's in the tournament. Obviously, I'm mentioning it because of the bantamweight tournament coming up in Bellator, but there's a lot of matchups in that Grand Prix that they're having it over at Bellator. All of them are a lot of fun, especially the ones they announced. And I just feel like he's somebody that I mean, he's great on the microphone, great fighter. And the storylines there with there's the drama of him, having trained with Pettis, who's the champ right now over there in that division at Bellator, also in the tournament. So there's just a lot to pay attention to. I mean, if I had to pick a whole, thing to watch, it's definitely that Grand Prix, because I haven't been shy about how I feel about Bellator's 135ers, but Rafael Stotts is who I got on my list.
Another good one, and I like the outside of the UFC going there with one in Bellator. Side note, fight that I think is going to happen, but I didn't add it to my list. But we've talked about it in the past, so I admitted it. Pettis Horiguchi. I don't know. You said that some fights have been announced. I might have missed that, but that's a fight, but that's not one of the 3.
Well, they're in the tournament, both of them. So
so eventually, it could happen. So I
wouldn't mind that being a first rounder.
First round. That's kind of what I was going for, but I felt that that was kind of boring since we had talked about that a couple weeks ago. So my second fight I'm going to go with Jose Aldo versus Tj Dillashaw. Just I feel like I I'm a Dillashaw fan, although I see him still as kind of the I don't know what's the word, a lot of people don't like him. He had that negative steroid test.
Yeah.
Kind of the black hat, I guess. And everybody loves Jose Aldo.
Yeah.
And everybody should. All-time great Aldo versus guy who was on a path for all-time great talks prior to the negative or to the positive test. I've stated my feelings on PEDs. I'm not going to hang a dude for it, especially if it's one test. Although again, it is against the rules, so I do acknowledge that. But I see banger written all over it. And it's just a fight that I don't think a lot of people. I've seen it maybe mentioned once or twice, kind of in passing, but I just think it. Dillashaw had his win over Sandhagen. Since his comeback, he's got 4 losses: Dodson, Asuncao, Garbrandt, and Cejudo. Or not Garbrandt, I'm sorry, Cruz and Cejudo. Foss lost to 4 really good guys in his career. Aldo on a big 3-fight win streak. Font, Munoz, forgetting one, but coming out, after kind of being thrown to the wolves at 135 in his initial drop when he had Marias, who was a real close fight, and then Jan, kind of like, didn't really give him a chance, I don't feel like, to kind of warm up to the division and kind of work his way up. He just jumped to the top, which he may have deserved, but I think it may have set him back a little bit. I think had he jumped into the rotation where he's won these 3 fights in a row and actually won those, we'd be looking at him fighting Jan now and it being a buildup of, a real thing. But, obviously Sterling, Aljamain's going to, they got to unify the championship. So the top 2 guys are kind of taken up. 2 veterans and just 2 guys. I just think it'd be a good fight. And, I'm not sure how it would necessarily headline. It'd probably be a good, God, if we could open up the world, take that fight down to Brazil for the first event back down in Brazil. I mean, that has fun written all over it to me.
Yeah. I'm surprised. Oh, maybe I'm the only one because I know a lot of people don't like Dominic Cruz, but I know Dominic Cruz said he wouldn't mind fighting Jose Aldo, and that's kind of one that I'd be like, oh, that's not a bad fight to put on a card either.
No, that's another fun one and very similar. I just think, although Cruz is on a roll now a little bit, I want to see Tj Dillashaw come back. I guess maybe part of that is just him fighting in general that I want to, kind of popped into my head as I was going down the rankings of fighters. But I just think that it's a fun fight, and it's one of those fights where like both guys could really kind of survive a loss. And when you have 2 guys that I particularly enjoy watching fighting, I kind of like that, where there's not really a huge downside to either fighter in the fight. So that's the second one. What do you got for your third fighter to keep an eye out in 2022?
My third fighter is one. I mean, it's just personal for me because I watch him get some success and some exposure. Again, from Bellator, Jornel Lugo, and he fought at catchweight in his last fight. But I mean, he was somebody that fought, been fighting for Bellator for a little while, and he was one of the few. I interviewed him. He talked about it when he won his fight, how he snuck into the presser and how guys kind of were like brushing him off, and now he's he's at 7-0 now. He defeated Keith Lee, submitted Keith Lee at Bellator 265. That was the last time he fought, and I mean, he seems to be doing his thing on social media and kind of jumping and getting his name associated with the cryptocurrency folks too in the crypto world. So that's just somebody I think we're going to see his name a lot more, especially he's from the Northeast. So I had to give some Northeast fighters some love too. As far as like fighters on the rise and ones to keep an eye on. I mean, he fought at catchweight, and I know he's officially listed on Tapology as a featherweight, but I wouldn't mind seeing him if something happened that they needed, because he weighed in 137 for that fight against Keith Lee. So if, say, with the bantamweight tournament, we talked about how, we kind of wish it'd be 16-man instead of the 8-man and blah, blah, blah. And if logistically things don't work out for the fights they have planned, if that's the kid they got to tap, I wouldn't mind seeing that him get a chance at some skyrocketed
just the opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, I like it. I like it. Well, my third fight, I go to Bellator also. So jump from the UFC for 2 fights, going to Bellator here. So I'm going to go. Now, this is regardless of the result of Gegard Mousasi versus Austin Vanderfort. But the fight that I want to see in Bellator in the middleweight division in 2022 is Gegard Mousasi versus Anatoly Tokoff, Team Fedor. 47-7 Mousasi against 30-3 Tokoff. Visually looks tremendous on a tail of the tape to me.
Yeah.
Team Fedor versus Gegard, there's, Fedor and Gegard had a little exhibition and I think it was Dream and a long time ago where, they kind of rolled, but I think that just looks great. Gegard's won, 11 out of his last 12, including fights in the UFC. And Tokoff is, not only 30-3, but has won 23 of his last 24 fights. I don't know if there's a matchup out there with potentially, even a non-title matchup with two high-ranked guys with that many wins, and it'd be 48-7, so it'd be 78 combined wins between the two of them against 10 losses. I mean, plus it's Team Fedor. Ideally, it'd be a title fight where if the Fedor, Tokoff wins, he'd be the champ and continue hopefully the Fedor Team Fedor takeover, or I should say Fedor team takeover of Bellator. But I two guys again like the Aldo Dillashaw fight. Two guys that I don't want to miss fight. They both put on. They always, Mousasi's had his snoozer, but when you've had 60 fights, everybody's had it down 2 nights. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not
like I look back at like the Machida fight from 9 years ago or something.
Well, if you look at like George St. Pierre before his first retirement or whatever, like when that fight against Johnny Hendricks, and there's questionable fights there. So yeah, no, they can't all be, they're not all going to be, ones folks are talking about at the water cooler the next day. But yeah, no, that's a good one, man. That's one I didn't think of. I mean,
the people voting for Bellator's rankings, I'd like to be explained how Tokoff is number 6 in Bellator.
Well, listen, there's if you look at when you look at the people the folks that vote and you can look them up to see who they are too. Some of them have actually been on this podcast too, so it's not them. We'll just say that.
No, we've got friends who vote. I'm going, wait a minute, the dude's 6-0 in Bellator, and he's 30-3, and he's ranked 6th in the division with a couple guys ranked ahead of him.
Because I talked privately with some of them, and believe me, I know that they're just kind of getting nudged aside by the other louder mouths, we'll say, in that list of folks. But yeah, so. I mean that's even though we fucked it up, we actually came up with some good shit right there.
No, I think it actually worked out a little bit better because 3 guys you came up with, I would have never wouldn't have been on my radar for.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, again, we talk about it enough on this podcast, and I mentioned it a few times already on Sunday Submission over at MMA News, but I mean, it's fantastic that the UFC is where it is and that everybody likes it, but like I talked to somebody that just fell in love with Michael Chandler because of how he lost to Justin Gaethje. And I'm just like, well, sister,
go back, find the footage.
Yeah, it's a girl I was talking to. I was like, well, you need to go back. I was like, you need to go check out Bellator. Go on Pluto, watch the Bellator channel, so where they constantly stream old fights, and check out the wars that the man has been in there. I mean, if you liked him against Justin Gaethje, wait till you see him win. You know what I mean?
No, that's that's Michael Chandler, and again, why he was in one of my fights. The other thing that we were going to talk about was name a fighter and that you'd like to see win a championship in 2022. I think yours is obvious, and I couldn't find anybody else going down the list that I would like to see be a major meaningful champion. I could say Fedor, I could say that, but for the nostalgia and for him retiring with a belt and all that, I could say that
because it's you,
and because it's me. But I'm pretty sure we're on the same page here. Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje. We both started watching him in his early World Series of Fighting days. We've both been, praising him for a decade now. The excitement he brings. I don't know why. I mean, I know why, because I feel like he's put in the work and he's been, he got to a title fight and had to fight one of the all-time GOATs of the sport. And, but for me, it's like, if he wins the championship, I know that championship fight is just going to be friggin' awesome every time he's in it. Like, it doesn't matter who he fights. Well, that's what I mean. Win or lose, I know every title defense he attempts to have is going to be a potential fight of the year candidate. And there's not a lot of guys. Michael Chandler's potentially one of those guys. Gaethje just beat him. We both came up with Gaethje. I couldn't even come up with like a second name without being like, oh, Horiguchi. Guys that are really gonna, that are, it'd be nice to see him get it back, but the one that would mean the most, and I feel like just catapult the dude to potential mega stardom. I mean, I know he's a big star right now, but you put a strap on him, and he's all of a sudden in the 7-Eleven Slurpee ads and stuff like that. Like, there's potential there,
and he definitely deserves it. I mean, he's talking about like and that's why I kind of alluded to what Charles Oliveira was trying to drop Conor McGregor's name a couple of weeks ago, and which caused concern for Gaethje, because it was, he's already been saying, like, if I don't get another shot, I he's been saying stuff like we riot or I walk and stuff like that, and rightfully so, man, because if you're gonna beat people the way that you've been beating them, I mean, the last guy he lost to was Khabib, the champion, and then he beats, he fights his way back to keep his spot and to be next in line. I don't see anything else. I don't see it because, it's clearly, we already know that because of how the UFC operates, Conor McGregor can skip any line he wants when he's ready to come back because of the money that he'll bring in, regardless of how good he is or his ranking. And that's kind of like the thing that makes people worried. But if that happens, I mean, I'd be just as pissed, because like you said,
if the UFC wants to ruin the momentum of the lightweight division, give Conor McGregor a title shot after getting destroyed 2 fights in a row.
Yeah,
like if you want to just lose any remaining credibility
and the fact that Oliveira mentioned his name, he just clearly wants a money grab.
I get it. He'd call out Jake Paul if he could. I mean, like, I get it. I get the money grab, and I get the fact that Oliveira has to be worried about a big money fight after having been fighting in the UFC for 12 years or whatever is ridiculous in itself. He's the champion. He shouldn't be calling anybody out. A, people should be calling him out, and B, you got Justin Gaethje there. Conor McGregor can come back and fight the winner of that, whatever. If you're going to do some bogus fight, but don't rob the man of another title fight. Yeah. In hindsight, I can say it now. I was happy Chandler got his title fight, but Gaethje deserved that even before Chandler did. Honestly, and it's. But anyways, we'll hope that he should get his shot. He's either going to get his shot or he'll end up the champion in Bellator. Him and AJ McKee's a fun fight too. So like there's whatever it takes.
Oh, but, man, that'd be. I mean, I think MMA Junkie did a whole thing on like cross promotional fights a couple of weeks ago, or maybe the month of the same thing when they announced the Grand Prix. But just really quick, I mean, for folks that, we're talking about people that are just becoming aware of fighters when they get to the UFC. I was searching as you were talking on the PFL. It used to be the World Series of Fighting's YouTube, and they changed over to the Professional Fighters League. But if you go to their YouTube channel, Justin Gaethje's fights are there. If you've never seen, if you haven't seen enough of Justin Gaethje, and you want to get your fill of Justin Gaethje to remind yourself and fight fans of why the hell he deserves to get his shot at the title, They're up there on the PFL YouTube channel, especially the title fight he had against was it Palomino?
Yep, I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
watch both of his fights with Palomino.
Yeah,
You'll see why Palomino has been successful in BKFC, undefeated champion there. Yeah, those fights to watch.
Yeah,
you know,
and just any of them really. I mean, you could watch his domination when he fought his way to getting the title. I mean, he handed Nick Newell his first loss there. It's just that the kid has been in it, and he's worked his way to the point that if we don't, I mean, that's another the way that I was excited for him and Chandler at 268. That's how I'm going to be that excited for Gaethje Oliveira for whenever it happens.
Yeah, no, I agree. Two other things of note that I did note for things I'd like to see next year that are fight related, but not necessarily individual fights. I'd like to see Chris Weidman's return to the ring or cage. Yeah. And I'd like to see Fedor's final retirement bout. Win or lose, I'd like to see him go out in a capacity crowd event somewhere in this world and be able to call it a career. So that would be my ideal, everything we've said tonight would be my ideal 2022. I think that's about it for 2021 for us. So I will wrap it up. Fans can follow the show at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. You can follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbizol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, Old Head Carb on Twitch. And fans can always check out our show at allaccessmma.com. Ed, have a good, happy new year. Try to stay warm. And let's keep our fingers crossed next year is better than this year. And you get a chance to get out there to those fights. And
yeah, man.
And get back to your normal as much as possible next year.
Yeah, here's to me losing 20 pounds.
Here's to everybody losing 20 pounds.
Have a happy new year, everybody.
Good night. Thanks for listening.